Seven Samurai is a 1954 Japanese samurai epic co-written by Akira Kurosawa, Shinobu Hashimoto, Hideo Oguni, and directed by Akira Kurosawa. Seven Samurai is set in Japan in the early 16th century, a period of uncertainty plagued by debt, high taxes, civil wars, and now bandits, a group of which on a high hill looked down upon a farming village lying prone, plump, juicy, and almost ripe. But not yet, not until the harvest. Only then will they return to steal the hard-earned fruit of the farmer's labor. Down in the village, the farmers are fearful and full of despair. There are disagreements about whether they should avoid bloodshed and surrender their crops to the bandits, or whether they should fashion their bamboo poles into spears and fight the bandits. The farmers go to see the village elder, who tells them to fight. Of all the villages looted and burned, those that survived had one thing in common: samurai. But the farmers have no money to pay for proud samurai, to which the elder tells them to hire hungry samurai, who will work for 3 meals a day. Even a bear, the elder tells them, will come out of the forest when he gets hungry. 4 farmers, Rikichi, Yohei, Manzo, and Masuke, go to the nearest town to find 4 samurai. But after 10 days and no samurai, things seem hopeless until the 4 farmers come upon a crowd surrounding a priest and a samurai. The samurai takes out a knife and cuts off his top knot. The samurai then hands a sharp razor to the priest, who uses the razor to shave the hair off the samurai's head. Kinbei, the samurai, then puts on the tattered robe of a priest. He then asks the villagers for 2 rice balls to go inside of a barn to rescue a child from a thief. Farmers surround the barn and all of them have weapons, but they are afraid. The front door is open and Kinbei offers the thief a rice ball in exchange for the child. The thief agrees. Kinbei tosses a rice ball to the thief and rushes in behind it. Moments later, the thief stumbles out of the barn, falls to the ground, and dies. Kinbei comes out of the barn with the boy and drops his blood-stained sword. Kinbei walks away. No one thanks him. A young samurai named Katsushiro bows to Kinbei, asking to be his disciple. The farmers hire their first samurai. Kinbei recruits 6 more samurai to work for 3 meals a day, and they return to the village. Kinbei looks around in horror. The village is wide open and easily accessible from every direction. He and his fellow samurai get to work, and over time the village and farmers become stronger. Fortified walls are erected, bridges are torn down, and crops are gathered. The harvest passes, and soon the fear of the bandits is replaced by dancing, forgetfulness, and ingratitude. With the reaping all done, the farmers think that the bandits have gone away. But Kinbei knows that peace is the most dangerous season of all. At the beginning of this film, a thief holds a child hostage inside of a barn surrounded by a crowd of armed villagers who feel helpless. A samurai named Kinbei cuts off his top knot, the very feature that identifies him as a samurai. He then hands a sharp razor to a priest to shave off his hair. Kinbei then dresses himself in the robe of a monk and asks for 2 rice balls to go into the barn and save the child. Humility comes before honor. Kinbei tosses the rice balls to the thief and rushes into the barn by himself. Moments later, the thief stumbles out of the barn and falls to the ground, dead. How was Kinbei able to do what the crowd of people outside the shack couldn't do? 1. He cut off his top knot to hide the fact that he was a samurai. 2. He assumes the non-threatening disguise of a priest to gain the thief's trust. 3. He has a priest to cut off all of his hair with a razor, a gesture incorporating 2 virtues, sacrifice and humility. 4. He then tosses the rice balls the villagers gave him to the thief, when the villagers thought that the rice balls were for him. And finally, Kinbei rushes into the barn, subdues the thief, and saves the child all by himself, a feat of courage that so impresses a young samurai named Katsushiro to ask to be his disciple. Machiavelli's The Prince, what a prince must do to be esteemed. Nothing wins so much esteem for a prince as embarking on great enterprises and giving rare proofs of his ability. Honor seeks no reward, but is within itself a reward. A farmer named Rikichi volunteers to go into the bandits' camp and steal their guns. Rikichi is eager to win honor to himself, but he is also inexperienced and stands a good chance at failing. Kyuzo, a samurai of proven abilities, snatches this opportunity away from Rikichi and goes solo into the bandits' camp, steals one of their guns, and gets himself 2 kills in the process. Kyuzo's courage and skill, as Kinbei's courage and skill in rescuing the child from the thief, wins praise and admiration, especially from Katsushiro. Kikuchio is jealous of Katsushiro's admiration for Kyuzo and evens the score by sneaking into the bandits' camp and stealing himself a gun too. But instead of winning merit, Kinbei reprimands him. Kikuchio's deed could have costed them a valuable samurai, and the deed was also self-serving and not for the greater good of the whole. For men to search their own glory is not glory. Art of War, Chapter 8, Variation in Tactics. In war, the general receives his commands from the sovereign, collects his army, and concentrates his forces. The sovereign is the head. Tactical decisions should be rational. Also, Kikuchio's motivation for going into the bandits' camp is to take glory from another samurai, as he did by dancing over the dead thief that Kinbei killed, or like the villagers stealing the armor off of slain samurai, or like old man Yohei trying on samurai armor that is too big for him. But this act on Kikuchio's part only attests to the high value of honor and the price the samurai are willing to pay for it. The samurai help the farmers to discover honor within themselves. Kikuchio teaches the farmers how to fight with swords and form battle units. Heihachi provokes Rikichi to work harder in the fields by questioning his manhood. At the beginning of the film, the villagers felt afraid and helpless, even though they outnumbered their enemies, the thief that held the child at knife point and the bandits. Back then, every option was on the table, from simply walking away from their harvest and letting the bandits take it, to even committing suicide. In fact, the farmers had plenty of rice, salt, beans, and sake stored away, but they were poor because they had no honor. They planted and sowed, but had no courage to defend what was theirs. The weeds are not just the bandits that appear at harvest, but other thieves such as laziness, disunity, and forgetfulness. There are weeds in the human spirit that come up in seasons of trouble as well as seasons of peace and prosperity. To prepare for the bandits' return, Kinbei and Goebei inspect the village to secure all the weak points. The weakest point of the perimeter is the eastern border. Here, they find Kikuchio stretched out, his head and feet propped up, snoring away with his sword sticking out of a pile of logs. Kinbei takes Kikuchio's sword and, from a hiding spot, tosses a stone in the water to wake Kikuchio up. Kinbei comes out of hiding and gives Kikuchio his sword and a warning. If he had been the enemy, Kikuchio would have been dead. But know this, that if the householder had known in what watch the thief comes, he would have watched and not have suffered his house to be broken into. Art of War, Chapter 8, Variation of Tactics. The Art of War teaches us to rely not on the likelihood of the enemy's not coming, but on our own readiness to receive him, not on the chance of his not attacking, but rather on the fact that we have made our position unassailable. Kinbei and Gorobei walk the perimeter of the village and discover another weakness: 3 isolated homes outside the village. Art of War, Chapter 8, Variation in Tactics. In country where high roads intersect, join hands with your allies. Do not linger in dangerously isolated positions. Art of War, Chapter 1, Laying Plans. If its forces are united, separate them. Once the bandits come for the harvest, whoever lived in those 3 homes would be isolated. Kinbei lays down the rules. All work shall be done in formation. Harvesting will be done together. No one shall work by himself. Everyone will camp together, unit by unit. Nobody shall do anything by himself. Kinbei even reprimands a fellow samurai, Kikuchio, for leaving the village to go into the enemy camp by himself. Despite the valuable intel he acquired, Kikuchio's motive for going into the bandits' camp was selfish. And as for the homes outside the village on the other side of the marshes, Kinbei orders them to be evacuated. 20 homes in the village can't be risked for 3 homes outside the village. If your right hand makes you stumble, cut it off and throw it from you. For it is better for you to lose one of the parts of your body than for your whole body to go into hell. Kikuchio, as pointed out earlier, violates Kinbei's order by going into the bandits' camp by himself. But even so, Kikuchio acquires valuable intelligence on the enemy's condition. Attrition through a series of unsuccessful attacks has taken its toll on the bandits, who are not only worn out from the clashes with the samurais and the villagers, but also hungry. The bandits' predicament comes from violating 2 rules from the Art of War. Chapter 6, Weak Points and Strong. You can be sure of succeeding in your attacks if you only attack places which are undefended. Also, Chapter 3, Attack by Stratagem. The rule is not to besiege walled cities if it can be possibly avoided. The preparation of mantlets, movable shelters, and various implements of war will take up 3 whole months, and the piling up of mounds over against the walls will take 3 months more. The general, unable to control his irritation, will launch his men to the assault like swarming ants, with the result that 1/3 of his men are slain while the town still remains untaken. Such are the disastrous effects of a siege. Sun Tzu realized that moods are like seasons and change over time. At the very beginning of the film, the fear of the bandits' attack intensifies leading up to the harvest. However, after the villagers gather their harvest with no trouble, the fear dissipates. Gorobei and Kinbei take in a scene of villagers standing around laughing and acting a fool without a care in the world, more at ease and confident in the peace following the bandits' threat to take their harvest. An experienced samurai, Gorobei observes the villagers' general attitude with disapproval. He and Kinbei knows that peaceful conditions are the most dangerous times of all. Art of War, Chapter 7, Maneuvering. Now a soldier's spirit is keenest in the morning. By noonday it has begun to flag, and in the evening his mind is bent only on returning to camp. Art of War, Chapter 1, Laying Plans. When we are near, we must make the enemy believe we are far away. The delay in the bandits' attack makes the villagers confident, forgetful, and ungrateful. They tolerate the samurai as long as they are threatened by the bandits. But as soon as the bandits are all dead, the villagers forget all about the samurai that helped them. Even Shino gives Katsushiro the cold shoulder after the bandits are dead and the crops are harvested. Machiavelli the Prince, concerning cruelty, whether it is better to be loved than to be feared, or the reverse. For this can be said about the generality of men, that they are ungrateful, fickle, dissembling, anxious to flee danger, and covetous of gain. So long as you promote their advantage, they are all yours. Akira Kurosawa had originally planned to make the film about 6 samurai, but decided to add a 7th samurai, Kikuchio, whose eccentric personality offsets the personalities of the other 6 samurai, who are all serious. Toshiro Mifune, who plays Kikuchio, was to play Kyuzo before Kurosawa made him the 7th samurai. Seeing Mifune as a wild man in this role brings to mind his role as Musashi Miyamoto in Hiroshi Inagaki's Samurai Trilogy. Mifune's role in Seven Samurai also brings to mind his role as the bandit Tojomaru in Kurosawa's 1950 film Rashomon. Of all Kurosawa's films, Seven Samurai is among my favorites for a number of reasons, starting with the cinematography by longtime collaborator Asakazu Naka. Each scene is full of so much information and wisdom. Nothing the camera sees is wasted. Poetry is in every shot. The music by Fumio Hayasaka is also great and matches the scenes well. It doesn't take long watching Seven Samurai to get the sense that Kurosawa's film is universal and applies to many aspects of life. The film runs almost 3.5 hours, but it feels an hour shorter. Seven Samurai is an old film, but you can see its influence on many of today's films like Star Wars, The Magnificent Seven, and The Avengers. This masterpiece is why I consider Kurosawa one of the best directors ever. Thanks for watching this video review and analysis of Akira Kurosawa's 1954 film Seven Samurai starring Toshiro Mifune. If you like this video, I would appreciate a thumbs up if you would leave a comment, but most of all, I would appreciate it if you would subscribe to this channel for more quality video reviews and essays such as this one. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.
This is business. This is business, not personal.
I will not be the one to break the peace.
Do you renounce Satan?
I do renounce him.
Thanks for watching my analysis of director Francis Ford Coppola's 1972 American crime film, The Godfather. The Godfather opens with Don Corleone hosting his daughter's wedding. According to Sicilian custom, a Don cannot refuse any reasonable request on the day of his daughter's wedding. A mortician named Bonacera stops by on this festive occasion to ask the Godfather to commit murder. His daughter's white boyfriend and his friend, also white, had taken her for a drive, had given her whiskey, and had tried to dishonor her, but she refused, and they beat her and broke her jaw. The Don is insulted by Bonacera's request on his daughter's wedding day.
But you don't ask with respect.
But after the mortician humbles himself and shows the proper respect,
Godfather.
the Don grants his wish. He will make those men that assaulted Bonacera's daughter pay for what they did, but he will not murder them. Family and marriage are extremely important to God, so this film opening with a wedding is not a coincidence. Don Corleone has 3 sons, Fredo, Sonny, and Michael. Santino, or Sonny, is the oldest and next in line to take over his father's empire, but is also hot-tempered and an unfaithful husband. And as God himself insists on complete fidelity, so does the Godfather, who frowns upon Santino's affair with the bridesmaid at his daughter's wedding. Now, Fredo, the middle son, has a good head for business, but is weak when it comes to alcohol and lacks the masculine force essential for a Don.
I can handle things. I'm smart.
And Michael, the youngest son, has all of his father's intelligence, discipline, and force. He'd make the perfect successor, but wants nothing to do with the family business and to distance himself further from it and his father. He joins the army and dates an American white woman instead of a Sicilian woman. Nevertheless, the Godfather, though disappointed by this rebellious son, is patient with him.
But don't ever take sides with anyone against the family again.
An up-and-coming figure in the New York underworld named Virgil Salazzo meets with the Don to talk business. Salazzo wants to sell drugs and needs access to the judges and prosecutors under the Don's control in order to ensure that his men will keep their mouths shut when they get caught. The second favor he needs from the Don is $1 million in cash. In return for these favors, Salazzo promises the Don a return on the $1 million. The Don turns down Salazzo's proposal. However, Sonny is also in this meeting and perks up at Salazzo's deal and interrupts the Don.
Guarantee our investment.
Without forethought nor respect for protocol, and although Sonny is able to catch himself quickly after realizing his mistake, it is too late. Salazzo spots this hair-thin crack in the armor of the Corleone family and files it away for future reference. In this scene, Sonny violates the following warning by Sun Tzu from The Art of War in Chapter 6, Weak Points and Strong. In making tactical dispositions, the highest pitch you can attain is to conceal them. Conceal your dispositions, and you will be safe from the prying of the subtlest spies, from the machinations of the wisest brains. In opposing his father openly, Sonny has planted the seed to murder the Don in Salazzo's mind. It has been many years since the last war between New York's 5 families, and since that time, the Don has become lax in taking precautions against his enemies and protecting himself. So, shortly after turning down Salazzo's proposal, the Don does something very foolish. He has his son Fredo to drive him to an outdoor market to buy some fruit. Now, the Don's regular driver named Paulie Gatto called in sick for the 3rd time in a month, and on this occasion, when he calls in sick, the Don is ambushed and shot 5 times. Fredo is unable to get a single shot off.
I can handle things, I'm smart!
But a seasoned soldier like Paulie Gatto would have had the composure to shoot one of the gunmen at least. Very convenient that Paulie Gatto just happens to fall ill on this day. Again, Sun Tzu's warning from The Art of War in Chapter 9, The Army on the March. The sudden rising of birds in their flight is the sign of an ambush at the spot below. Startled beasts indicate that a sudden attack is coming. The Don was warned by his lawyer, Tom Hagen, that saying no to Salazzo's proposal would mean trouble. The Don heeded this warning by putting his meeting with Salazzo off until after his daughter's wedding. And as Hagen also pointed out to the Don, there is too much money to be made selling drugs, as Salazzo wants to do.
There's a lot of money in that white powder.
The other families also want in on this action, which isolates the Don, who doesn't care for drugs at all. Here, the Godfather violates 2 of Sun Tzu's precepts from The Art of War. First, Chapter 8, Variation of Tactics. When in difficult country, do not encamp. In country where high roads intersect, join hands with your allies. Do not linger in dangerously isolated positions. The Don had encamped in difficult country by leaving all of his businesses, including himself, unprotected and accessible to his enemies. The Don's second mistake, according to Sun Tzu, in times of peace, prepare for war. In times of war, prepare for peace. The long years between wars had made the Don soft.
10 years ago, could I have gotten to him?
Salazzo had used this long period of peace and complacency against the Don. Also, this scene of the Don getting shot while buying fruit foreshadows later scenes in the movie by showing the yin and yang relationship between life and death. Note how the Don, after being shot 5 times, is surrounded by fruits and vegetables, or life. A scene that is almost identical to the scene later in the film in which he dies in his own garden surrounded by life. After attempting and failing to kill the Don, Salazzo seeks a truce with Sonny.
Sonny was hot for my deal, wasn't he?
Salazzo must make another attempt to kill the Don. However, he won't have the element of surprise in his favor. The following precept from Sun Tzu's Art of War in chapter 10 on terrain. Ground that can be abandoned but is hard to reoccupy is called entangling. From a position of this sort, if the enemy is unprepared, you may sally forth and defeat him. But if the enemy is prepared for your coming and you fail to defeat him, then return being impossible, disaster will ensue.
Trust me, that's all I can tell you about my business.
Michael Corleone goes to see his father at the hospital. All of the men assigned to protect his father there have been taken off of their detail. Michael and a nurse moves his father's bed to another room because whoever took away the security detail was setting his father up to be killed. Note how the Don is completely vulnerable in this scene, unable to protect himself, completely powerless. A visitor stops by the hospital with flowers named Enzo, who had heard about the shooting and came to show his respect and gratitude for the Godfather's help in keeping him from being repatriated back to Italy. He and Michael stand guard in front of the hospital like scarecrows.
Put your hand in your pocket like you have a gun.
A carload of men cruises by slowly. Michael is as unarmed and vulnerable as his father in his hospital bed, and the car drives off quickly. The perfect example of the book of Hebrews chapter 11 and verse 1, which says that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Because we see first the Don, powerless in his bed in the hospital, stripped of all protection, being protected by his son Michael, who just happens to stop by to see him at the precise time that Salazzo's killers arrive to finish him off. When Michael kisses his father and tells him that he is going to be okay, the Don's smile conveys his faith or belief in his son's promise that he will be okay. Michael's faith kicks in through the act of faking like he has something that he does not have, which is the essence of faith, or believing in something that isn't real as though it is real. To further reinforce this point, when the car speeds away from the hospital, Michael's hands are steady as though he knew everything would turn out okay, unlike Enzo's hands, which are shaking.
You did good.
John chapter 1 and verse 29. The next day John saw Jesus coming toward him and said, "Look, the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world." Instantly, a dirty police captain on Salazzo's payroll named McCluskey pulls up to the front of the hospital and hops out of his patrol car so angry that he has 2 officers to hold Michael's arms.
Stand him up.
Then McCluskey punches Michael in the jaw, breaking it, and Michael completes his orbit. From Army veteran and war hero to private citizen and civilian to an active participant in Sonny's plan to kill both Virgil Salazzo and his bodyguard, Police Captain McCluskey.
You're taking this very personal.
For Michael now sees the hypocrisy of America in that she can be bought and paid for with drug money, as symbolized by McCluskey's and Salazzo's relationship. But paradoxically, their relationship is a reflection of his relationship to his father, who is also invested in illegal activities. So it comes down to a choice: to be part of a world in which he isn't respected and even despised and walked on, or to be part of a world in which a man like his father is respected,
Godfather,
and controls his own destiny. A world in which he isn't a puppet dancing on someone else's strings, as he had been as a U.S. soldier fighting wars on behalf of the military-industrial complex. Michael's decision to murder the police captain and Salazzo is a crossroads that sets him on the path to his ultimate destiny. Like Jesus, Michael and his innocence up to this point represents the sacrificial lamb and the perfect choice to negotiate a truce with Salazzo, in that he is a civilian and not of the world, figuratively speaking, or directly involved in family operations, and is therefore the spotless lamb or perfect agent to take away the sins of the world by eliminating Salazzo and McCluskey together. Michael guns down police captain McCluskey and Virgil Salazzo immediately. Sonny sends Michael to Sicily and places him under the care of a Don indebted to the Godfather, Don Tomasino. On a Sicilian countryside, a shepherd leads a herd of sheep downhill as Michael and two shepherds, his bodyguards, move uphill in the opposite direction. This is Don Corleone's native country, and it is here that Michael discovers a beautiful young woman, a virgin named Apollonia, and he is struck by what Sicilians call the thunderbolt, which causes him to forget about the danger he ran away from in America, as well as his girlfriend Kay. One day, Sonny visits his sister Connie, and seeing her with a black eye, he finds Carlo Rizzi, her husband, and beats him up publicly. The same inability to manage his impulses which drove him to have an affair, that drove him to oppose his father in front of Virgil Salazzo, this same powerlessness over his own flesh now drives Sonny to play into the hands of their enemies. Following the assassination attempt on the Don, Sonny had ordered the family's button men to go to the mattresses for war against the Tartaglia family, whom he suspects is behind the assassination attempt. To equalize the attempt on the Godfather's life, Sonny had ordered the hit of the eldest son of the Tartaglia family, Bruno, who had invited Luca Brasi to his nightclub and executed him with Salazzo's help. Since then, Sonny has been under lock and key in the Corleone compound, occasionally venturing out with bodyguards to see his mistress, Lucy Mancini. Brazenly, as if to defy Sonny for beating him publicly, Carlo Rizzi beats Connie with a belt. Get out of here! She also happens to be pregnant again. Sonny flies into a rage and out of the compound to straighten Carlo out, but this time he is intercepted at the toll booth on the Jones Beach Causeway and gunned down. One of the gunmen even kicks him in the face so that he can't have an open casket funeral. Sonny's downfall in this scene is explained by Sun Tzu in The Art of War, Chapter 9, The Army on the March. He who exercises no forethought but makes light of his opponents is sure to be captured by them. Also, Chapter 1, Laying Plans. If your opponent is of choleric temper, seek to irritate him, pretend to be weak that he may grow arrogant. It also never occurred to Sonny that the so-called fights between his sister and her husband Carlo were orchestrated to smoke him out of the compound where he was safe. Sun Tzu's Art of War, Chapter 6, Weak Points and Strong. If the enemy is taking his ease, harass him. If quietly encamped, force him to move. If well supplied with food, starve him out. Appear at points that the enemy must hasten to defend. March swiftly to places where you are not expected. Also, if we wish to fight, the enemy can be forced to an engagement even though he be sheltered behind a high rampart and a deep ditch. All we need do is to attack some other place that he will be obliged to relieve. Get out of here! If the enemy is the invading party, we can cut his line of communications and occupy the roads by which he will have to return. Art of War, Chapter 11, The 9 Situations. Walk in the path defined by rule and accommodate yourself to the enemy until you can fight a decisive battle.
You'll be baptized?
At first, then, exhibit the coyness of a maiden until the enemy gives you an opening. Afterward, emulate the rapidity of a running hare, and it will be too late for the enemy to oppose you. The Don recovers from his wounds, rises from his deathbed, and calls a meeting with the heads of New York's 5 families at a bank that he owns unofficially. The Don wants a truce with Tantaglia. They have both lost sons, and now all the Don wants is for Michael to return to America safely.
But I'm a superstitious man.
Because the Don knows that his enemies have spies in Sicily sniffing for Michael, so in this meeting, the Don delivers his famous Iron Curtain speech and promises everyone that he won't be the one to break the truce. He then embraces Philip Tartaglia, though not out of love, but to secure Michael's safe return to America. For the Don knows that he must humble himself, suffer insults and trespasses, even on his territories, until he can build himself and his family back up to full strength. Sun Tzu, from The Art of War, in Chapter 9, The Army on the March. Pass quickly over mountains and keep in the neighborhood of valleys. The Godfather, by Mario Puzo. Every man has but one destiny. In Sicily, Michael marries Apollonia. Enemy spies booby-trap his car with a bomb. To surprise Michael, Apollonia decides to drive the car from the gate to the house for Michael. But when she turns the key, and the car explodes, her death becomes Michael's death and rebirth into his father's world and seals his destiny to take over the Corleone Empire. His love for Apollonia is the only thing that could come between himself and complete devotion to his father. Her death and the poverty of his father's native land enables Michael to fully understand his father's determination to not be a puppet, dancing on someone else's strings. The Don has cleared the way for Michael to return to America, and Apollonia's death ensures that he will return to America to stand by his father against their enemies. Throughout this film, death and life are two sides of the same coin. Michael returns to America and to Kay. He looks less like the American Michael she once knew and more like his Sicilian father. In this scene, Kay is the America he strived to be a part of. And now, after experiencing the hypocrisy of America in the relationship between Virgil Salazar and Captain McCluskey, followed by the death of his Sicilian wife Apollonia, Michael's acceptance of his father's world and ideology makes him cold, and Kay feels disconnected from him. Where before he tried to become a part of her greater society and forsaking his father, joining the army and dating her, a non-Sicilian white woman, he now wants her to forsake her world for his world. And in this, Michael, though changed, still has yet to make peace with the fact that he cannot reconcile their worlds, his and Kay's, even though they are both rooted in violence, capitalism, and corruption. He as yet is unwilling to completely let go of the world he forsook in murdering the police captain and Salazar. Back then, he didn't understand his father as he understands him now. Kay's outlook on men like his father in her world and his new outlook on his father can never coexist. Amos chapter 3 and verse 3. Two cannot walk together unless they be in agreement. Mark chapter 6 and verse 24. Man cannot serve two masters, for you will hate one and love the other. You will be devoted to one and despise the other. Mark chapter 2 and verse 22. And no one puts new wine into old wineskins. If he does, the wine will burst. The skins and the wine is destroyed, and so are the skins. But new wine is for fresh wineskins. Two objects cannot occupy the same space at the same time, and the ideological rift between Kay and Michael culminates in her decision to abort his son in the sequel, a hypocritical rejection of his world, a world of ruthless killers hiding behind the facade of family, God, and values not unlike that of her own world. Kay's abortion in the sequel severs Michael from her world completely.
Michael, you are blind.
As I've demonstrated up to this point of my analysis, understanding Christian themes is key to understanding this film. The resurrection and the yin and yang relationship between life and death are cyclical in this movie. When Sonny was murdered, the Don rose from his deathbed. When Apollonia was murdered, Michael was figuratively reborn to embrace his family, father, heritage, and destiny. Now, we again see the Christian themes of life, death, and the resurrection when the Godfather dies while playing with his grandson in a garden. A fitting and perfect death, surrounded by life that is equivalent to the scene in which he is surrounded by life in the form of fruits and vegetables after being shot at the market earlier in the film. Also, as two objects cannot occupy the same space at the same time, the Godfather's death marks the birth of a new generation of leadership under his son Michael. Sun Tzu's Art of War, Chapter 4, Tactics. The good fighters of old first put themselves beyond the possibility of defeat and then waited for an opportunity of defeating the enemy. Also, Chapter 6, Weak Points and Strong. All men can see the individual tactics necessary to conquer, but almost no one can see the strategy out of which total victory is evolved. Michael attends the baptism of his grandson as his soldiers kill off the heads of the other 5 New York families. Once again, we see the symbiotic relationship of life and death as Michael's godson is baptized and the heads of the 5 New York families are executed simultaneously. And after all of the smoke settles and his grandson is baptized, the old Michael is officially dead and the new Michael emerges in the fullness of glory as the undisputed Don of Dons, the spiritual reincarnation of his father Vito Corleone. By pretending to be weak, closing all the family's New York businesses and moving everything out to Las Vegas, Michael and his family were underestimated and their enemies became arrogant and let their own guard down, as the Bible says in the book of Proverbs in chapter 16 and verse 18. Pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before fall.
The Coyote family don't even have that kind of muscle anymore.
Matthew 13 verses 38 through 41. The field is the world, the good seed are the children of the kingdom, but the tares are the children of the wicked one. The enemy that sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the world, and the reapers are the angels. As therefore the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so shall it be in the end of this world. The Son of Man shall send forth his angels, and they shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend, and them which do iniquity. Michael settles all family business in New York by punishing the traitors in the family first. Carlo Rizzi, Connie Corleone's husband, who had Sonny killed, then Tessio, the Godfather's own capo regime or lieutenant,
Don't make it was only business.
who had also, like Carlo Rizzi, sold out to Borzini. The family accounts in New York are all settled now, and again we see the cycle of life and death as Michael takes the empire his father created in New York City to Las Vegas, Nevada, where the seeds of the family's slow disintegration begin to take root. To appease Kay, Michael denies any involvement in the execution of New York's 5 families, but when she sees him through an open door having his hand kissed by each of his bodyguards, he reminds her, according to Mario Puzo's novel, of a statue of a Roman emperor having his hand kissed with the power of life and death over those who serve him. Seeing the proud attitude of his body and expression of his face in that open door, Kay realizes that Michael had lied to her. He had ordered the execution of New York's 5 families. Here's a few things you may or may not know about The Godfather. Did you know that Paramount Studios paid Mario Puzo only $12,500 for his 1969 novel? He accepted this sum in order to pay off $10,000 in gambling debts. Did you know that Paramount wanted Sergio Leone to direct the film and that he turned it down to direct his own gangster film, 1984's Once Upon a Time in America? Did you know that the studio threatened Coppola to make The Godfather more exciting in order to reach a wider audience? Did you know that Paramount went after Laurence Olivier, Ernest Borgnine, Anthony Quinn, George C. Scott, and Orson Welles to play Don Corleone? Mario Puzo and Coppola pushed for Marlon Brando to get the part, but the studio was against Brando because of the poor performances of his recent films and his short temper. Did you know that Robert De Niro was originally cast to play Sonny but quit? Did you know that Burt Reynolds and Jack Nicholson were offered the chance to play Michael Corleone? Reynolds turned the role down after Brando threatened to quit if he didn't. Jack Nicholson turned down the role because he felt that the role should go to an Italian American. Did you know that Marlon Brando refused to accept his Oscar for Best Actor to protest the depiction of American Indians in Hollywood and television? So again, thanks for watching, and let me know what you think in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe to The Godfather of Cinema for more movie reviews. Until next time.